Welcome back. We have our very first guest and our very first top story is about to be discussed now. Now, in the wake of the forthcoming elections, we're preparing, we're gearing up, and we're spreading the word on why people should vote, who can vote, and what are the challenges that plague voting in Nigeria or outside Nigeria. Now, to help us discuss enfranchisement in Nigeria, we have the principal partner of Bonita Solicitors, Barrister Sesan Akinsanya. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good afternoon to you. So let's look at voting in Nigeria. First of all, enfranchisement sounds like such a big word. So can you break it down really? What is enfranchisement?
Well, basically what that means is the right to vote by voters. And if you have to go back the memory lane, the right comes from Universal Declaration of the UN, United Nations, that countries should encourage their adults to vote, and the concept of adult suffrage was used in that. And basically, since then, governments have been encouraged to, institute democratic ways of getting people involved in governance of their country. That is a way of putting their voice in what the government does. I
like that you mentioned that the governments have found ways, to involve people in the democracy. And I must say that so far we're really doing a great work, because like this next elections will be the most active I've seen since I was born. People are more interested. But let's ask, do voters have rights? Because people think it's just to go and, put their votes, but do they have any right? Do they have rights to, question the electoral process? Do they have rights to ask for documents? Does the freedom of information apply to voting as well? Do voters have rights generally?
Generally, voters have rights. At least there's one that's clearly defined in the Constitution, which is your right to be registered once you are 18 and you are registered in Nigeria. That is the basic thing, and that leads to the question of, if you are not registered in Nigeria, should you be, how do you vote? If you're in Nigeria, you're not a resident in Nigeria, how should you vote? But regarding questioning, whether you can challenge the government, why not? All these issues, once it is in conjunction with the electoral law, any issue can be tested.
So if I feel that I voted for somebody and I feel that the person rightfully deserved to win, and I wanted to see evidence of why another person and not my candidate won, I can actually bring up a case in court?
Well, you are talking about evidence, issue of evidence.
Yeah.
Getting such evidence is another thing. You have talked about Freedom of Information Act. It probably will be an uphill task for you to get those. You can ask for it, getting it, and whether it's enough for you to disrupt the whole election of a country or a state, having regard to what has gone into it, is another matter. That's called for.
Okay, so now let's go back to the qualifications. You mentioned the first one, you have to be 18 and above for you to be able to vote in Nigeria. Are there other qualifications?
You have to be 18 and above at the time of registration, and you have to be resident in the country as at that time. There's issue of prisoners also, and the courts has taken decision on that.
Okay, what is the current position with regards to prisoners voting? Because we know for the longest time, lots of people have clamored that the fact that somebody has been sentenced to court for a matter, sentenced to a prison sentence for a matter, should not restrict their right to vote, because at the end of the day, they will leave this prison, they will come into the society, and they'll be governed by leaders that they did not put in power as well. So what is the current position with regards to prisoners and voting?
Prisoners are members of the society, whether they are in the prison or outside. The current position is that the High Court in Benin actually declared that they have right to vote, and that is the current position of the law.
Until it is being challenged.
Well, until it's being challenged, and in fact, the INEC itself has said that they are making arrangements to make sure that they vote in the next
What
general
are your
election.
projections in this regard? It's one thing for the court to say that voters in prisoners are allowed to vote. It's another thing for it to be enforced. You're a lawyer yourself. You've seen the court give verdicts and judgments on certain issues.
Sure.
How effective do you think this particular verdict will be in the forthcoming elections?
Well, like I said earlier, INEC has said that they are making preparation to make sure that prisoners are voting the next general election. But it's one thing to say you want to do something. It's another thing to actually do it, and to make enough preparation, that's another thing. If they are planning to make preparation, will the preparation be adequate? Will it cover all the prisons in Nigeria? Will it be marred by issue of the fact that they've not done adequate preparation? So So that is a big question because they've not done it in the past. It's a new thing that they're going to do. And of course, because of that, the fact that they lack experience in that area may affect it. But we'll wait and see.
Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed. And these are some of the issues that we should take into account because we are the people and the people have the power. And we can hold INEC responsible if they have given a verdict that prisoners should vote and they do not effect this. Now, let's look at the problems, some of the problems that plague voting in Nigeria. There are certain people who complain that they register in one place and they're not even being able to, they're not able to vote as well. So, for example, while we're off air, you made mention of how you registered in Yaba, and maybe because you decided to relocate somewhere else, you're not able to vote.
Yeah, that is a major problem. I mean, many people are deprived because they have changed residence from the time they register and the time that the election is taking place. And this is a major problem for me. I don't think that should be a problem if we have really, really moved forward in terms of voting. The main reason is because movements are restricted, you know, during elections, and you can't move around. If you move from one location to the other, you can get arrested. But in my view, I think we should get to a state where, with your voters card, you'll be able to vote anywhere. That is something that a sort of logistic that INEC needs to look into to make it possible for you to vote wherever you are. But currently, what they do is that you have to go and do what they call change of residence or whatever. You know,
what's the process for that? Is it like an affidavit? Is it something you go to swear in a court, or it's INEC that handles it?
The INEC handles it. What you need to do is to apply through a letter to INEC. After that, you've completed an application. Then you make a photocopy of your permanent voter's card, and then you submit it to INEC in the new area where you want to go into. You know, in that form that you're going to complete, you mention the area where you're moving to and your new residence. Then after some time, maybe about 2-3 months, INEC will now come back to confirm the change of your center, and then they will give you a new PVR.
Wow. So whilst we're still arguing about this issue, so it's important for you to note that wherever you are living or wherever it will be easier for you to vote, it's important that you try to register there to avoid drama and stories that touch. One very similar situation to the one we just discussed is the rights to vote for Nigerians living in the diaspora. Now, recently, the president of an association of Nigerians in the diaspora, Kenneth Bandi, came to Abuja for a conference. And basically what they were pushing for was for the government to create a system, for INEC to create a system that would allow 17 million Nigerians around the world to be able to participate in voting in Nigeria. Currently, what is the situation and what is the way out, really?
Yeah, I mean, that is also a right of, you know, those Nigerians as well. They have their right to vote wherever they are because they're Nigerians and they will want to contribute to how things are done in the country. Currently, the Constitution is an impediment to that because the Constitution talks about registering voters who are residents in Nigeria. So that means if you're outside Nigeria, you can't be registered for now. But the only positive thing is that INEC and indeed the National Assembly are already considering amending the law, the Constitution, and the electoral law to enable Nigerians in the diaspora to vote.
Okay, so we're looking forward to see an improvement in that regard. How long do you think that will take?
Well, because it's a constitutional issue, it will take a long time. It's not easy to amend the Constitution, as we all know. I mean, and apart from that, the Electoral Act has to be amended as well. Whether that will happen between now and next election, which is just about a year away, is a moot point.
All right, I guess we'll keep our fingers crossed and see how that plays out. Yes, now, before I let you go, last week Friday, the Supreme Court has asked the Independent National Electoral Commission to delineate the Bakassi Peninsula. So basically, to create constituencies for the Bakassi people of Cross River State displaced from Bakassi Peninsula in Cameroon. The Supreme Court is their highest court in Nigeria. It is the final point. So now that the Supreme Court has given this order, what does this mean for Nigeria? What does this mean for the people of Bakassi?
Firstly, for the people of Bakassi, I mean, I would say congratulations to them. Their right to vote has been declared by the final court in the land. So INEC has no choice than to comply But as you said earlier, compliance is always an issue in Nigeria. But INEC, by their conduct, they've always shown willingness to comply. The other question is capacity to comply. Can they be able to do it? So it depends on the logistics that they are planning for the next election. But Supreme Court has, given a decision, it needs to be complied with.
Now, we know that 2019, when the elections come, is a time for lawyers. Lawyers are very excited about elections because after the elections, there would always be matters. Election tribunal will be buzzing, and a lot of them will make money. Tell us, from your own perspective and from the experience you've gathered over the years, what are your projections for the forthcoming elections?
Well, I think we should be moving forward to a situation where elections are not challenged, through frivolous means. I mean, what I will call, where no good reasons are, preferred for challenging elections. We should move from that.
We basically always do. I think some people have, of course, there are frivolous suits that come to court, but some people have valid reason to think that the case they're bringing is a valid one and they have evidence before it. Are we going to see more of frivolous suits this coming elections? Or do you think that INEC has been able to cross its T's and dot its I's, and the only cases that would see in court are very few ones in comparison to the ones we've had over the years?
I think INEC is doing a good job. And if you compare past elections with the more recent ones, we're making improvements slowly. And also the politicians, probably some of them are getting to learn the fact that you don't have to challenge every election. I mean, the last presidential election, the incumbents, voluntarily considered defeat. And I think with that, we are basically, the culture is basically gradually changing for the better. So let's hope for the better.
Now, in your own opinion, I'm really joining you to hope for the better, but in your own opinion, what also, finally, before I let you go, is your projection for candidates for 2019, particularly with regards to the president? Do you think the president will come back again? Some people, there have been mixed reactions. Some people have said he won't come back. Some have said he will. Some said it's, some are sitting on the fence. And recently, Uche Secondos had come out to say it will be a terrible decision if he decides to return. Do you think that our president will return for another term?
My view regarding the president is that, he's a citizen. He has the right to vote and be voted for. It's up to him to decide whether he will return or not. The issue that many people are considering now is his age and, of course, his health as well. Since coming back from England some few months ago, he's looking better. He's looking like he's strong enough. To me, it should not be an issue. My basic take is that it should be competence. So that is up to now. It's up to Nigeria to decide whether he's competent enough to be returned, to governance. If he wants to call him, he should call. And the field should be open for any other candidate that wants to contest, with him to come up. And let's see, nobody should tell him not to come. That is his own decision. He should decide whether he wants to come or not. And then whether he loses or wins. That is the consequence of his decision.
Very true indeed. The power is in the people. You decide if you want to vote him in or not. Let us know on Twitter if you think he should come back for another term. Let us know on Twitter at Wazobia Max with the hashtag Hello Nigeria. And also, very importantly, we'd like to stress the need for young people, old people around the world, around Nigeria, to ensure that they go and register for their PVC. Importantly, you can join a political party. Be aware, be informed. I must commend our society right now. I think this is the most involved we've ever been in politics, and it can only get better. We need to understand that the power lies within us, and we decide the party that we put or the government that we put. The people get the leader that they deserve, and the power is in your hands. So go out today, get registered, get your voter's card, and exercise your right to vote. Thank you so much, Barrister Sesan, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Nothing to add.
To enjoy more of these our Ogbonge videos when you just watch, press this button to subscribe on top of our YouTube page. You go love her.